The following program is a UWTV classic.
From the University of Washington in Seattle, Upon Reflection.
Hello and welcome to Upon Reflection. I'm Marcia Alvar. Dale Chihuly first experimented with glass as a design student at the University of Washington. It was the early 1960s, and Chihuly fused bits of wire with glass and added them to a tapestry, part of an assignment to add texture to a fabric. Today, some 30 years later, Chihuly is still experimenting with glass, but from a somewhat different position. He's co-founder of the Pilchuck School. He's a teacher, designer, craftsman at the very top of his artistic discipline. It's a great pleasure to have you on Upon Reflection.
Thank you.
A piece of your work is sitting before us. What is it?
It's a stopper from a large vase with a cherub on the top. That's, in Italian, it's called a puto, and we refer to them as putti. And I'm having an exhibition in a couple of weeks in Los Angeles at the Pence Gallery called Tutti Putti.
Now, this is one of the Venetians, the Venetian series?
Yeah, it's an extension of the Venetian series with the putti.
Now, Venice and Italy really seem to be the center of the history of glassmaking. There seems to be some kind of secrecy or mystery attached with the history of this art form.
That's true. This glass-blowing art really started about 2,000 years ago, but about 1,000 years ago on the island of Murano, off of Venice, it developed to a very high level, became a very important part of the Venetian commerce. And they put all the glass blowers together on one island so that there would be no problem with fire, and also because they didn't want any of the glass blowers to give out any of the secrets. And so if they did try to leave Murano and they were caught, they were executed. So it remained on this island, these secrets, for centuries, eventually worked its way throughout the rest of Europe. But because of this tremendous secrecy that built up during this period, it remained with glass, and has really remained with glass throughout its history, until rather recently, since it, as sort of a renaissance in glassblowing, started in the United States about 30 years ago.
Now, with a lot of the visual arts, I guess you think of it as a kind of lonely artistic form, the painter in the studio, the sculptor working alone in the studio, and that's really not the case with your art form.
Well, I suppose the idea of the artist working alone is more of a late 19th, 20th century idea, because of course all the art in the Renaissance and many periods before that was done in ateliers of very large groups of people, where you had several artists working on the same painting. But we think of art sort of, I suppose, sort of from Van Gogh's time forward more, where one did work alone.
Well, how did that happen? Went from a group to an individual?
I don't know really, but I mean, I don't exactly know why that happened and the demise of that atelier system, but it somehow, I mean, it really, it didn't happen in all areas. I mean, those that did sort of large-scale sculpture, of course, always had to have a lot of assistance, and but painters could work alone, or they could work in groups, and if they were doing commissions, large commissions, it was often made more sense to work with a group of people than to work alone.
Now, when you're creating your pieces, you're working with a group of people. Did you consciously want to return to that atelier form of creating art?
It just was it's just the easiest way to work with glass. It's a very difficult medium to work with by yourself, and that it helps to have a lot of people working on the same project. The larger the pieces get, the more people it takes to make it. And I don't know if I was, partially drawn to glass because that's the best way to work with glass. I do know that I like to work with people, and that probably it's very likely that I probably would have ended up doing something that involved working with a team.
Now we're going to take a look at a piece of tape that was shot in your studio. Give us a little bit of a preview. What are people going to see? How many people are involved in the creation of a piece?
Well, I don't know which tape you have, but if it's with Lino, which someone mentioned it was, who's a great Italian master that's been working with me on the Venetian series, it would probably be a team of about 12 to 15 people, which is about as big a team as you can put together in terms of working in a studio with glass. Usually a more likely size would be 5 or 6 people. But I think this tape shows, if it shows Lino working with me, there'll probably be about 15 of us. And everybody is really working on the same piece, preparing parts that'll come over. And if I'm not sure, is there music with the piece, or do you want me?
I think there is music,
So
and let's just take a look.
We'll watch it, and then we can talk about it.
And we'll find out.
All right.
A visit to the studio of Dale Chihuly. Dale Chihuly music video, a visit to the studio of Dale Chihuly. It looks like so much fun.
Yeah, it is fun. You know, that's I suppose that's one of the reasons that I like working with a team. It is a lot more fun, and you know, at days that you're not quite up for the challenge, somebody else pulls you along, and vice versa, and it's all sort of set in motion. All the sort of blows are planned and scheduled, and people are flown in, and we go to work, and
it's like choreography.
And you have to rise to the call of.
Now, one of the things that we saw in that video, you were drawing a sketch of a piece, and I've heard that as one piece is just being finished and being set in an oven to cool down, you're already working on a sketch of the next piece. There's a kind of relentless quality about your work.
Well, I no longer do any of the glass blowing. I used to sort of head the team, as we call the gaffer or the master. And some years ago, I quit doing that and just sort of direct the team. And one of the things that I do is make drawings while the piece is being made. And usually that's when I will make the drawing, is right at the end of one. I'll start the drawing. For another, I'll get an idea from watching the process. It'll inspire me. And if I make a drawing, it sort of inspires the crew. And so a drawing is made, and the maestro or the master looks at it and then interprets that.
When I read about that, I thought you just don't want the momentum to end. It's a way of picking up on the energy as something is ending and sort of lifting off into the next one, and that as a person you just don't like it to drop.
Yeah, there is a lot to the kind of momentum. It's almost, you know, like an athletic event in some ways. And it is important to kind of keep it moving while there's one person starting the next piece while everybody else is working on the primary piece, so that when the master, in this case Lino, finishes the piece, another piece is handed to him already underway. And so he picks up from that point and doesn't have to do all the beginning tasks of gathering up the glass to start another piece. So
how many pieces do you do in a day?
Well, we do about 8 or 10 pieces in a day, of which, you know, we may lose a couple in the process of making them. We may lose more if we're experimenting, trying things that we'd never done before. And then we may lose a couple also after the piece is made. It goes into an oven to be cooled down for about a 2-day period. And while it's in the ovens, sometimes there's a couple of pieces lost as well.
Is it true that the first 10 years you were doing pieces, you never sold anything?
That's true, with the exception of, you know, an odd thing here and there. But I really virtually didn't sell anything for 10 years. But you know, we just didn't think about selling things then. It was sort of back in the 70s and in the late 60s, and there was, it hardly entered our minds to sell work. And I became a professor primarily so I would have an income to be able to do my work. And that was sort of what you did back then if you wanted to be an artist and find a way to make a living.
A lot of people still do that as artists. Don't give up your day job, I think, is still pretty,
well, that's true.
Pretty fitting.
And then there seemed to be, you know, I got, most of the work I did actually, the first 10 years, wasn't very saleable, even if there had been a system or a way or some way to sell it, because a lot of it was environmental and temporary, and I used a lot of ice and neon, and then, you know, something happened, and I had a show with a certain series, and it began. And
what were the breakthroughs? What were the moments, the mileposts that really stick out in your memory?
Well, there aren't so many that really stick out, but I remember getting a call from the curator at the Metropolitan Museum. This was in 1976, and Henry Geltzeller. And said that he had seen some photographs of my work and that he'd be interested in buying some for the Met, and would I come to New York and show him some work, and which I did, and he did buy 3 pieces, and that, for some reason, that particular purchase and connection meant a great deal to me. You know, I remember that probably more than any single event. I don't know why.
So it sort of was where you had to pinch yourself to the Metropolitan Museum of Art wants my work, that sort of feeling?
Yes, and other things, very, good breaks have happened along the way in other cases, but that one sticks out as being, I had an important exhibition in Europe that 4 or 5 years ago, and I expected it to be a big event, but it was, when I think back on it, nothing was really quite as big as getting that call from Henry Geltzeller, which was, he was a very early supporter of mine, and that helped my career a lot.
Now, I read in 1979 the Corning Glass Museum decided that they would have a show, and that represented some real watershed in terms of glass as an art. That the number of artists who were interested, that the number of pieces submitted really overwhelmed the museum, and all of a sudden the big light bulb went on that this is an art form and it's really coming onto the scene.
Well, Corning is often given credit for that, for mounting this important exhibition, I think it was called New Glass. I don't kind of remember it as being that way, but I'm probably wrong. I think maybe it was an extremely important exhibition that attracted a lot of attention. I think it was reviewed in Time, and but my recollection of it wasn't exactly like that. But I have heard that from many sources, so it's probably true.
What makes an artist hot? What makes a Dale Chihuly piece so valuable one day where 5 years before you couldn't sell it?
Well, it's, that's complicated with, I suppose, with any career or profession, how to explain sort of what happens, I taught for many years, and I often used to sort of try to figure out, where two students would be very talented and one would succeed in being, by the time they got out of school, already you could sense that they had the ability to go a long ways with their career and to be inspired, even though they were sort of equal talents. And I've never been able to quite figure that out, because they can be very similar and even be, in a funny way, motivated in a similar way. But one does something that opens doors or that gets them, I don't know if
it's almost something besides the art itself or besides the creativity itself. It's showmanship. It's you're very careful about the way your work is exhibited.
Well, yeah, I'm careful about certain things, but some other artists might be careful about something else. It's like there's no pattern or there's no way that you can say this is what you have to do. It's I don't think there's any way to describe it. I don't think there's any particular way, really. I think it happens, like what made one actor become famous and another actor not. It might be that not necessarily because he or she was a much better actor. It might have been a break in what film part they were given or what. There are so many different things involved in it. I don't know what the answer is, but I was, I like to think that I feel, often feel that I really was pretty lucky in being in the right place at the right time. And, I don't know how many of those breaks you create for yourself, but when I think back on things, it could have been a lot different.
Some artists create work and don't really care what happens to it once the piece is done. They create it for themselves. I get the sense from your work that you really like the audience part of your work, that you really like to have people look at your work and admire it, and that's important. That's almost as important to you as the creating of it.
Well, it's true. I always sort of felt like I was making it for somebody, not just myself. It wouldn't interest me very much just to make the pieces and not be able to do anything with them. I was always interested in photographing them and exhibiting them. I get a big kick out of working with catalogs, documenting the work, and but yet it's very difficult for me to. I'm very prolific, and I've done thousands of pieces and series over the years, and so I can't really I don't keep it. It goes out, it goes away. And I'm very glad to see it go away. And so, but I have a record of, I photograph everything. And so for me, I sort of still have them because I have the photographs, and then I enjoy working with publishers and putting together catalogs and books, and I enjoy going to the studio. I mean, to me, after I'm finished in the studio, the work continues on from there. Well, in particular in my case, because I work a lot with parts that have to be assembled afterwards.
We have a sort of video catalog of your work that we want to take a look at, that shows a number of different phases that your work has gone through, and they're not in chronological order, but people will get a sense of the range and the different types of work that you've done. So we'll take a look at the work of Dale Chihuly. Look at some of the work of Dale Chihuly. Such lovely pieces. So, in 1985, Alan Rudolph made a film, Trouble in Mind, and 2 actual sets of your baskets were destroyed in the making of that film. And I guess it'd be like the Woody Allen, the cocaine scene in Annie Hall when he sneezes into the dish of cocaine. And people reacted when they saw the Chihulys actually being destroyed on film.
Well, I like his films, and when I was approached to would I give him some artwork for the set, and Divine was the character involved in the scene, I was very happy to help out. Unfortunately, I wasn't around Seattle much at the time of the filming, so I didn't get to be on location very much, but it was an interesting film.
I'm sure that anybody who knows your work, when that scene comes around, they get at least 2 big gasps out of the audience. Why did you come back to the Northwest? You were teaching at the Rhode Island School of Design, but you came back.
Well, I'd been teaching for about 15 years, and during that time we started the Pilchuck Glass School. And when I could afford it, when I was able to quit teaching, I did. And this seemed like a great place to come back to. My mother lives in Tacoma and Pilchuck. I love the area, and I love Lake Union. And so it was my dream to have a studio on Lake Union and set up shop here in Seattle, and I'm happy I did.
So those dreams have all come true. What's ahead? What's left to dream?
I don't know. I suppose if I knew what was ahead, I'd probably be doing it. We'll see. There's an exhibition in a couple of weeks with the Tutti Putti, and then I have an exhibition in Washington, D.C., and we're working a lot with architectural projects. And
you've done some paintings recently?
Yeah, mostly large working drawings more than paintings, I'd say. But there's, I work with a great group of very creative people. Almost all of them are artists or craftsmen. Many of them do their own exhibitions, and so, I'm in a very inspired position in terms of who's around me and my location and a great facility, and there seems to be plenty of ideas to work on.
Well, my thanks to Dale Chihuly for joining us on Upon Reflection.
Thank you.
To see more UWTV classics, visit uwtv.org/classics.